Hello there. In this video I'm just going to look at how easy it was to do a 620-mile round trip, which is just over 1,000 kilometers in a day in the Q4 E-Tron. I did a video the other day where I was pre-planning this route, but you can't pre-plan it on the app and send it to the car. There's no function to do that. So first thing I did this morning was set up the app. It reckoned a 28-minute stop at the Porsche Centre at Carnforth on the way down, and that'd be enough to get me from just south of Edinburgh to Coombe Abbey, which is near Coventry. So just before 5 AM, I'm going to reset everything and then check the sat-nav, see what route it comes up with, and see if the suggestions on there match the ones on the app. So search for Coombe Abbey. And that's shown up as a recent destination because I looked it up on Monday.
The route
Start planning the route.
calculated. The destination is on a limited access road.
And then if I click on here, it'll tell me I don't have enough charge. And I can use the E-Tron planner to work out possible charges on the way down. And surprise, surprise, it wants me to go a completely different route with 2 stops.
Attention.
So
the route contains
I'm just going to disregard that.
Closure. An alternative route cannot be
I could add a
recommended.
destination here, but actually what I decided to do was drive for a bit, and then it picked up the Porsche one as a possible option, so we just went with that. The worst case scenario here, it was cold, it was chucking it down with rain, the heating was on, heated seats were on, wipers were on, lights were on, and we started off at 4 degrees. I'll just show you, you can have 2 different maps running on here. So I've got the Audi nav running on the virtual cockpit, but I can put Apple Maps like this, or Google Maps, or a bit of Route Planner or whatever on the MMI screen in the centre. We got a brief spell where the rain stopped, but obviously as soon as I started to pull up to the charging location near Carnforth, the rain started again.
You have reached your stopover. The stopover is on the left side.
And you can see the delight on my face when I realise I'm going to have to get out of the car in the rain. First stint then was over 150 miles. The miles per kilowatt hour was 2.7, which wasn't brilliant, but the heating and the wipers were on for pretty much all of that, and the temperature wasn't high. Obviously it continued to rain for the entire time I was setting up the charge and taking this photo. Not brilliant conditions. But plugged it in. I hadn't done any of the yo-yo driving to get the battery warm, and started off at 87 kilowatts. I dropped a bit after that, but we got to 81% in 37 minutes. While we were charging at the Porsche Centre, we decided it would be a good idea to have a reasonable amount of charge left when we got to Coombe Abbey, because the plan was, after the event we were at, we were coming straight back up towards Edinburgh. So we put in an extra stop at Stafford, at the Ionity charger there, so that we could get to Coombe Abbey and back to Stafford and still have a reasonable amount of charge left. We got a nice clear run down, apart from the last 100 metres before the Ionity charger in Stafford, when we hit a little bit of traffic, and we got 3 miles per kilowatt hour. Again, temperature was gradually going up, but we did have the heating on the entire time. The Ionity charger at Stafford started off fine, and we popped in at Starbucks to get a little caffeine hit, but for some reason the charge stopped after a short time. It's only got 8 minutes and it stopped. So I restarted again, Kept an eye on it while we're sitting having coffees. And it was charging away fine. Still getting 71 kilowatts at 51%. Dropped to 63 by 64%. And then again, inexplicably, at 69%, it stopped. We were in the middle of watching a meeting that we were meant to be at, so quickly moved it to a different charger, plugged it back in, and carried on until it got to over 80 odd percent. Eventually, once the meeting was finished, we popped out, stopped the charge, and we were on 93%. At 93%, the range was shown as 205 miles, which is going to be plenty to do our little kind of 50 odd mile run down to Coombe and back. Now, while you're driving, you can get a lot of information on the virtual cockpit. So on here, I've got the range, short-term memory, battery percentage. I can view the long-term memory in the centre there. I've got the mileage and temperature and everything at the bottom, and the sat-nav directions and a countdown on the right-hand side in the speedometer. I could also change the centre section to have radio information or the sat-nav stuff or speed limit signs, that kind of stuff. So the virtual cockpit's pretty cool. So we reached the destination, 311 miles away from the house, and averaged 2.9 miles kilowatt hour for the entire journey down. The last stint being 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour. We were in traffic and the sun was out, so the heater didn't have so much to do. One thing to note is that the timer on the long memory is slightly out because I was sitting at the charge with the heating running and the ignition on, so that counted all that as part of the journey time, even though we were stationary and charging. Search for. So I went over, straight back to the car, get the sat nav up, search for Penicuik again, spell it incorrectly. Oops. I'm just going to set the town as a destination, and then check the E-Tron planner again and see what it suggests. So we're planning to do Stafford again and the Porsche Centre on the way back. Not a brilliant signal here, but there we go. So let's want to send this back up the east coast, which we're not going to do. We're just going to ignore that. So decline that option. So we reversed our route for the way back to Stafford, another quick coffee. The long-term memory is at 3.0 now for the miles per kilowatt hour, and the last stint there was 3.7 miles per kilowatt hour, and temperature's still pretty good. It took it up to 80%, it dropped below 50 kilowatts as we're getting close to 80. And by the time I actually got the card out and stopped it, we were at 81%. At this point, things started getting a bit crazy with traffic, but I'm not entirely sure why. It came up suggesting that by the time we got to where we were going, we would have an additional 30 minutes of traffic. So we kind of just ignored that and carried on anyway. We did hit some traffic, but only maybe 5-10 minutes worth. And eventually it picked up that we were heading back towards Porsche. It did want us to do a short stop at Porsche and then go to Gretna Green, but we decided since it was going to be chucking it down with rain, we would just do it all at the Porsche Centre again. It did try and reroute us at one point to avoid traffic and send us through Penrith, but then it changed it back to Porsche again. So we just ploughed on, headed back to the charger at the Porsche Centre. So long term for the trip is 3.1 at this point, and that last stint for over 100 miles was 3.7 miles per kilowatt hour. We arrived with 41%. We decided we'd take it back up to 80 and then hope that was going to be enough to get back, depending on the weather conditions. I quite like the fact that as you're charging, you can watch the blue range map expand till it covers your destination. Well, half an hour at Porsche to get up to 81% again. Car hit 12k on the way back. Yay! And we had a bit of a play about with settings. Switched the main screen off, turned the virtual cockpit down to minimal display. And then we saw lightning in the distance. That didn't bode well for the weather conditions. And sure enough, it turned pretty horrific for a wee while. But at least the temperature was slightly warmer than it had been in the morning. So consumption didn't drop all that much. So eventually made it back home. The blue range map had a little bit kind of left on it, but not a huge amount. We're under 30 miles of range, way under 20% left. So the last part of the journey there, cold, dark, wet, and got 3 miles per kilowatt hour. So overall, the long-term memory for the day, 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour. And the speed and the time will be slightly out because I was sitting with the ignition on one of the charges. But overall, 623 miles is what it's come out as, which is just over 1,000 kilometres. So looking at the numbers then, all the charges are recorded on the E-Tron Charge Service because I used the card for that. And there's 3 short charges in Stafford because it failed those 2 times. So the car was on 100% when we started the day, and during the day we charged 143 kilowatts. I know some of you out there are wondering about numbers and facts and figures. I'm not going to talk you through this. I made a spreadsheet because I'm that guy. Overall, it cost me £62.66 in charging. Bear in mind I did have 100% from a free charger before I started. So if you look at that, I've got what the conditions were, start and finish percentages, the miles per kilowatt hour, distance covered in miles, the miles per hour, and the drive time in minutes, and then the total charging time. A couple of numbers don't quite match up on the spreadsheet with the long-term computer, but I think that's just due to rounding errors. Overall then, it was a pretty painless experience. The car was comfortable and quiet and smooth. The charging was reasonably quick. There were no queues, everything was easy to find. So it was relatively painless. Would I do it again? Yeah, I probably wouldn't do it in one day. It was quite a long drive for one day. But that's not the car's fault, or the charger's fault. Right, that's all I've got for you for this video. If you've made it this far, well done you, that's epic. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.